Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. Hold on, I'm out of breath. The internet went down, so I had to run next door and try to start the router again. And I think I'm here. Tell me I'm here, everybody. Please tell me I'm here and you can hear and see me. And while somebody tells me that, let me just welcome everybody who's here in the chat room for the Hangout. Oh my goodness, a very large chat room, so I'm hoping this works. Let me go back up here. Let's see, I'm going back to the beginning. I have Florence is here, Christine is here, Anna is here, Michaela is here, Bookworm is here, Lisa S is here. Let's see, I know there's some more of you guys here. Christiane, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, Christiane? Is that correct? I'm not sure. She's from Australia and she's just joining. What? Wait a minute. Let me think. What? Are you awake? Let's see. This is a 7 o'clock. Wait a minute. I forgot what time it is. It would be for you right now. Tell me what time it is. Because it's great if I can get people from my friends from Australia to the shows in New Zealand. Just because the times don't work quite as well as if you're in the U.S. And of course, you UK folks have some issues sometimes as well. Let's see. Let me see who else is here. Oh my God, Michaela is also from Melbourne. So, wow, we got a representation here today. All right. Let me see who I'm not sure who I said now. Corey's here. I'm losing track now. And Heather's here. And if I missed you, I'm really sorry. Can you hear me, by the way? Just somebody tell me, since my internet just went out. Oh, see and hear. Okay. Let me get out of this. I just love it when the internet doesn't work. And if you're wondering why you're not here in the chat room, because I get these questions all the time. It's like, I keep missing all your live shows. Yeah, that's because you haven't joined Patreon. And the link is below. Join Patreon. It's $5 a month. You're a part of the community then, and you get to come to all the live shows, all the case lives on Sunday, the hangouts during the week, and the phone-ins and the extra stuff. So, and that helps support the channel as well. And if you're not up to doing that, please just like and subscribe. That makes a difference as well. All right. So, all right. I'm trying to calm down and breathe a little bit. Oh my goodness. So anyway, it's only, Lisa S says it's 7 p.m. in Connecticut. Well, that would be true because it's 7 p.m. where I am too in Maryland. Michaela says 10 a.m. Okay. Well, it's 10 a.m. on what day of the week? So it should be 10 a.m. Thursday in Australia. So I guess if you aren't in the office at the moment working, you can actually see mid-morning. All right. I'm glad to hear that. That's great to see you here. So that's fantastic. Okay. So there's some news today. I'm going to start off with some news because, it's interesting how this kind of news comes around, unfortunately, too often, and it's going to annoy everybody yet again if you haven't seen the news. And the news is, of course, about the McCanns. It's like the McCanns and more money being put out for the McCanns, the case of missing Madeline McCann. All right, so unbelievable. I mean, I'm like, okay, let me read you the story. It came out a few days ago. It's, of course, from the Sun, who is never to be believed. But anyway, Maddie Lifeline, Madeline McCann's parents' joy as their 13 million pound probe into her disappearance. Well, I guess any parent would have loved to have had a 13 million pound probe in their child's missing case. And they're lucky if they get 13 pounds, not 13 million. They get another 300,000 pounds to keep the search alive. Now, what is your first thought when you hear this? What's your first thought on this money? Because the first thought that came to me is, what happened to Christian B? You know that Christian B dude, the German guy who supposedly is the guy who did it, and the German prosecutor says he's 100% sure. And of course, time is going on, and he's got zero proof. So interestingly, one would think if Christian B was 100% the guy, Why is 300,000 pounds needed for future investigation into what happened to Madeline? So I find that rather interesting. Michaela says, throwing good money after bad. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that one. I mean, even if, and for all of you who know me, know I have a book called Profile of the Disappearance of Madeline McCann. It's not available on Amazon because the McCanns had it taken off by their lawyers, but it's available on Smashwords, Kobo, Apple, and all that. You would know that I don't believe in the abduction theory, that I don't believe the evidence supports that. But even if the evidence supported an abduction, it's been so many years now that so much money has been plowed into this case. We look at the Scotland Yard money put in that you poor taxpayers in the UK have had to throw up for this case. Add to that the money Portugal has spent. Add to that all the money that people have given the McCanns for their fund to find Madeline, which hasn't been successful. Massive amount of money there, donations. Now the Germans have put a whole lot of money into it. I don't know how much Interpol has spent on this, but the amount of money spent on this one missing child, when you look at the massive number of missing children across the world, children who we know are truly abducted, for example, not questionably abducted. And the simple fact that if Madeline were truly actually abducted, she would have been dead within a few hours by a child sex predator. She's not going to be in any sex ring. So like, I would say 24 hours after the crime went down, we could pretty much be sure she was dead for one reason or the other. So why is this amount of money being spent on a search? It should have been left in Portugal's hands. It should have been for them to figure out. And if they couldn't, like every other case in the world, if the police cannot come to a conclusion, it's a bummer. The case is oftentimes just shelved because there is not an answer, or there isn't enough evidence to take anybody to prosecution. And that's the way it goes. Why this case goes on and on with so much money, it's actually an insult to every other missing child case in the world. So, if the McCanns were sharing at least their fund money with other missing children, if the McCanns actually said to Scotland Yard, hey, you got to stop. We know the chances of my daughter being alive are ridiculously non-existent. And all this time, with her picture plastered everywhere, more investigation is not going to make a difference. Spend your money on other missing children. But do they say that? No, they do not. And that offends me a lot, because even if it were my child at some point, I'd say, look, other children matter too. Other children matter too. Florence says, at what point should we see the behavior of the parents continuing to spend other people's money as a sign of sociopathy? Same with John Ramsey, still on TV. That is a good question. Obviously, a parent may be desperate and try to do whatever they can. But there is a point, especially with the fund. I've often pointed this out, that the money has been wasted by the fund managers, which I think are just, I don't think they're anybody but, Jerry and Kate. I've never seen them hire anybody of worth to investigate the case. They just hire squirrely PIs who do some weird stuff and do their bidding. But all that money people have sent in, I haven't seen it go to anything that has even any merit. And I think some of that has been used for lawsuits against Gonzalo Amaral, which I think is a blatant fraud. That's blatant fraud, because that's not what the people sent the money in for. So if they sent the money in, it should only been used for the literal search for Madeline. And so, yeah, I would say you have to start questioning their personalities. Although I questioned their personalities quite a long time ago. Let's see. Michaela says Christian B is a bad egg and needs to be in jail anyways. Yeah, he nobody likes Christian B. He's a piece of crap. But that one piece of crap doesn't mean he did some other crime. And you never want the wrong guy to be convicted or supposedly stated that he did the crime he didn't do. Not because I feel bad for him if he's already a scumbag, but that somebody else is out there and has gotten away with it. And that's wrong. It's a miscarriage of justice, whether you like the person or not. And it's not the way it should be done. So that was an interesting little one. Let's see if there's anything else said here. It was feared. Oh, I just got to read this. It was feared that the inquiry into Maddie's disappearance was set to be shelved this month. Oh, the only person who feared it were the two of them, because the rest of us feared it would not be shelved. Let's see. It would have heaped more agony on her mom and dad, Kate and Jerry, already reeling. Oh, sorry, I have to put some drama into this because it's ludicrous. Already reeling from recently losing a long-running, bitter libel battle against former Portuguese police cop who wrongly claimed. Hello, the son. Now you just libeled Gonzalo Amaral, didn't you now? Wrongly claimed they could be responsible. Wait a minute, how can you wrongly claim somebody could be responsible? Could be, doesn't say they did it. It could rain tomorrow, doesn't mean I'm wrong. It could or it could not, but I just said it could. I didn't say it will or it absolutely will. He didn't say, so somehow he wrongly claimed they could be responsible. Oh, these slimy supposed journalists, for the accidental death of their daughter and cover up of her body. Well, I guess I've wrongly claimed they could have done the same thing. But now the pained couple, do they teach them these atrocious use of adjectives in journalist school? The pained couple from Rothley have welcomed Scotland Yard's pledge to carry on the search for Maddie. What do you mean, pledge? I mean, you know, most police departments don't pledge to carry on an investigation to the ends of the earth with as much money as possible. They pledge to do what they can within reason. At least if they're responsible, that's what they do. More than 50 years ago, who vanished more than 50 years ago. So the Home Office spokesperson told The Sun online today. Oh, they actually talked to The Sun. Really? Okay. Ministers previously approved a request of £302,470,000 for funding for this financial year, in line with our special grant processes. Special grant? Not really. Oh. Whilst the sum asked for by Scotland Yard has been given the green light by newly appointed Home Secretary Suella Braverman, there's another person we can dislike forever, guaranteeing money for the probe, code-named Operation Grange, until at least the start of April 2023. Oh, it's down from a whole £50,000 from the previous year. Oh, apparently it's going to cost, they're going to not be able to pay the vacation salaries for two other PC recruits. Oh, recruits. Okay, so two other guys who don't know what they're doing won't get a vacation in Portugal. That just sucks, man. Heart doctor Jerry and medical worker Kate. Medical worker. Okay. Both 54 recently said they welcomed the country's top forces' renewed help, saying, "We are grateful for the ongoing work and commitment by the British, German, and Portuguese police. It is this combined police efforts which will yield results after how many years? Okay, sure. And bring us those answers. The focus is now rightly on the search, because it's always been wrongly on the what? Now it's rightly on the search for Madeline and her abductors. Or abductors. You know, it's the case that will not die, even though the child died many years ago. All right, so Michaela says, why is Scotland Yard so blinkered? They won't even consider the McCanns. They were given a remit not to consider the McCanns. That's from the moment that happened, I knew this was a fraud, because that's not the way you conduct a case. It isn't. You say everything's on the table. We're going to start from the beginning. And then after you do that, then you might exclude the McCanns. But to exclude them before you start the investigation, it's fraudulent. Corey says, wrongly claimed. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Because they're journalists. Apparently they don't know how to write. So that's why it's amazing. Wait a minute. Lisa says, that's code for we're sticking to our story of abduction. That is true. And Michaela says, would do more give to give Pat the money to keep the channel going, or for me for a housekeeper. Can we share the housekeeper? Yes, I love the ladies that come, but they only come every 2 weeks. And like, I just want them to come more often. because I'm a horrible housekeeper. So I'm with you on that. I think that would be a great idea. Okay, so that's the Madeline McCann story of the day. Now, to another story of the day. This one, because there's a lot of people super, super upset about this. And this is, let me find our story here. Hold on a second. Where to go? Oh, come on. It's too early in the show for me to lose my place. Okay, here I am. Alec Baldwin, yes, reaches a settlement with, Helena, is that her say her name? Helena Hutchins' family. Alec Baldwin reaches settlement with Helena Hutchins' family. Now, for those who do not know what this is, the family of Helena Hutchins, the cinematographer killed on the Rust movie set in 2021, and Alec Baldwin have reached an undisclosed settlement in the wrongful death lawsuit filed against the actor and others, according to the statement. And somebody had let me know about this because I said, it helps to be rich as crap, when it comes to, paying somebody off when you shoot one of their family members. Matthew Hutchins, widower of Helena Hutchins, Helene, I really don't know how to pronounce her name, Ms. Hutchins, who was killed on set, will be executive producer. Wait, I'm not sure what language I'm speaking. Wait a minute. Matthew Hutchins, this is the guy, this was the husband of the woman who was killed. She was a cinematographer who was killed when Alec Baldwin pointed a gun at her and she was behind the camera and he shot her, thinking the gun was not loaded, and that's how she got killed. Point blank, got killed. He will be an executive producer on film. What? You got a job too? I mean, wait a minute. The statement says, we have reached a settlement subject to court approval for our wrongful death case against the producers of Rust, including Alec Baldwin and the Rust movie producers. As part of the settlement, our case will be dismissed. The filming of Rust, which I will now executive produce. Interesting. I've never seen that. You get your wife gets shot. Not only do you get money, but you get a job with the people who shot her. I find that a little peculiar. Just me, maybe. So he's going to executive produce the Rust filming. I hope he has some talent, because I'm not sure what his credentials are. We'll resume with all the original principal players on board. I have no interest in engaging in recriminations or attributions of blame to the producers or Mr. Baldwin. All of us believe Helena's death was a terrible accident. I'm grateful that the producers and the entertainment community have come together to pay tribute to Helena's final work. So she has a son, so they're trying to do the best for the son, supposedly. Let's see what else is here. We're pleased all the parties have come together to have a big party. I don't know. The lawsuit also claimed the production companies and producers cut corners and chose to hire the cheapest crew possible, specifically noting that they knowingly hired a wholly unqualified armorer. In other words, there's a lot of things on Twitter and all that which claim Alex Baldwin as a murderer and should be in prison. Okay, I disagree with this. And the reason I disagree do I think, I have a thing about guns in that if you have a gun in your hand, it's your responsibility. Generally speaking, this is very true. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to know that the gun is loaded or not loaded. It's your responsibility to never point the gun at anybody you don't want dead. It's your responsibility to keep your damn finger off the trigger unless you are wanting to see somebody dead. That's the rules of handling a gun. And I don't have a problem with that because I do own a weapon or two, and I know those rules. But the weird part here, and the part that gets very confusing, is that this was a movie set. Okay, so in many, many movie sets, the problem is, especially things Old West and all that, you have a tremendous amount of guns on the set as props. And there's a lot of talk how you could improve the methodology. Like, you don't really have to have the gun loaded anymore. You can have them shoot the gun and then add in the sound effects. And I think with all of how everything is advanced so much in video and in audio and all the things we can do these days, I think it's about time we find a way not to actually have to have blanks in the gun. to make the noise. Well, so what happens on a movie set, though, because I haven't apparently done that, is on a set where the person is pointing a gun at somebody else and pulling the trigger because that's what they're doing in the movie. It's a cowboy shooting somebody, or it's a bad guy shooting somebody, or it's a cop shooting a bad guy, or whatever it is. They're pointing a gun and they're shooting it, and it's going bang. And there's supposed to be an armorer who handles all the weapons that are used and makes sure that they are not functioning as real weapons. Somebody screwed up, did something wrong, and somehow that gun ended up with live ammo in it. There's no proof that the person did it on purpose, but when Alec Baldwin was handed the gun, it had live ammo in it. He did not know that. So he pointed it, he pulled the trigger, and she died. I really don't agree with people that he should go to prison for the rest of his life for murdering her. He didn't murder her. At the most, it would have been manslaughter because he had no idea the gun was loaded, and he was doing his job, and somebody else put that gun essentially in his hand, told him it was not loaded, and it was. And a movie set is a movie set. It's not the same thing as some other situation where you could say, well, every person has that responsibility, period, and should never aim it at somebody. This is a movie set. It's how it's done. So that really sucks. So I don't know if there's any criminal charges that are going to come against him. I certainly understand a civil lawsuit on this, absolutely, because the failure of the company to do their proper job the family deserves something from that, and also to make a point that this should never happen again. Now, the person who actually was handling the armorer, I'm not sure that they're not actually the ones should be charged with an actual crime, because that was their job, and in their job they loaded live ammo into a weapon and handed it to another person. I'd say they need to be charged. But the lawsuit, I understand, but I just think it's a little funny that, it's all happy now, and the widower gets a job, and it all goes away because somebody got paid a lot of money. I don't know. It's a little, I would like to see that money was going to not to go to some good, like 50% of the money or 75% of the money was going to reconstructing the methodologies used in the industry so nobody else gets shot. Something like that. I guess I can wait and see whether that ever happens. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting story. So let's see. Michaela says the law in Australia says you're responsible for every round fired. I mean, generally speaking, that's true. But is that true on a film set when you're supposed to be handed a non-lethal weapon? And you're told it is not. I mean, I get it, but it's supposed to be loaded with blanks. And I don't know how a person who is an actor on a set is going to check that every single time he's handed a gun to do. I don't know how he's supposed to even know. So it's a really weird problem there. That only because on the movie set. Every place else, I get it. Every place else. Christine says, "Oh my God, I so agree. Never point a gun at anybody. Still remains unknown why he did point at her. No, he was pointing at it because he was supposed to do that. Because the thing was whether it was aimed at the right place, whether what it would look like in the film. As far as I know, now so." Again, it was not supposed to be loaded, so nothing should have happened. I'm sure he was shocked as hell and horrified. I mean, people say, it's like he didn't care. I don't buy that. Yeah, I mean, even if he's not your favorite person for one reason or the other, I don't. He didn't do it on purpose. I'm sure he's going to have to live with that horror in the rest of his life because he thought he was doing what he was supposed to do on the set as an actor. An actor's an actor. So. Brandon Lee's death was also a tragic set of circumstances, and I can't remember that one, but I don't know. Bookworm says, I can't believe we still have live guns on movie sets. That's what I think could change. I think that could really change. Really, a lot of movies don't even have an armor on set. That's even scarier. Wow. Well, again, right, Lisa, why would he point and then pull the trigger, even a cold weapon? Because it's his job. I mean, that's what you do on a set. There's a lot of guns shot on a set. You point them at people. Just think about the Old West thing where, you have the two guys go in two separate directions. They turn around and shoot at each other. How are you going to do that unless they shoot at each other? That's how the film is Now, one of the guys will then drop dead, because he's been shot by the other guy. You can't have them not shoot at each other. Like, no, let's see. No. So you have to shoot at each other generally speaking, on a film set. And and the way it's always been done is you pull the trigger and it's a blank. So the sound is right. Everything looks like it's a real shot, but it isn't. However, if you accidentally put a live round in the gun, things go badly. But yes, I'd like to see things move to some kind of more, modern methodologies of not having to actually put the round in the gun at all. So then in that case, somebody could easily check to see there was no rounds in the gun before they put it, fired it at somebody. Now that's interesting. Film sets have their own set of rules in Australia. I'm curious. I'm going to have to look that up and see what it is. I'll have to see what that is. I'm not sure. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting, but he got a job too. So I hope he loved his wife, because now he's rich and has a job, but yeah. Now this next one, I want to point out because, so this story is about Johnny Depp. He's going to produce yet another movie because, he was into the Paradise Lost documentary trilogy, right? He just apparently has a bromance with Damien Echols of the Memphis Three. And we already know he doesn't have a good judgment because he hooked up with Amber Heard. So, I'm not surprised that he thinks Damien Echols is a great guy and innocent and all that kind of stuff. But apparently he's going to do a documentary. No, he's going to produce a movie about Damien Echols. So it says here, with the Memphis Three out of prison, there seems to be no shortage of interest in telling their stories. God help us all. HBO recently premiered the third installment of the compelling Paradise Lost documentary trilogy. And yeah, it sure did. And West of Memphis, which I saw and was horrified, made its premiere this year's Sundance Festival. The mystery of the murder of three boys in West Memphis, Arkansas is unsolved. No, it is. Okay, here again. Journalism is dead. Okay, the case was not unsolved. The three boys, the young men, who were young men at the time, teenagers at the time, were convicted. Yes, they were released from prison, but they took an Alford plea, which says they still are guilty of the crime. The crime is solved. They're not the police are not intending to reopen it. And I will link below my Memphis Three analysis because I think they're guilty. But it certainly is not an unsolved crime. It's a solved crime that people disagree with how it was solved or disagree with the conviction. There are people who believe they convicted the wrong people, but that doesn't mean the crime was unsolved. It just means you think it was in your own personal opinion. All right. So, and it will stay that way until it will stay unsolved until the person or people responsible for the deaths are brought to justice. But three men who were just teenagers when the crimes were committed spent 18 years and 78 days in prison before being released last year. Wait, I don't even know where they're getting this stuff. After new DNA evidence produced led to a deal that resulted in their release. What DNA evidence? There's no new DNA evidence. This is insane. I mean, this is complete crap. Complete crap. Given how widely publicized the story was, especially after the original Paradise Lost film debuted, it's understandable there'd be more interest than ever to understand what really happened to lead to these three wrongful convictions and speculate over really what happened to those children. All right, so let's see. Let's see what the new one's going to be about. According to Deadline, Johnny Depp and his producing partner, Christy Dombrowski, under their production company, Infinitum Nihil, have optioned the film rights to the currently untitled, yet to be published memoirs of Echols. He's already written, I think, 2 books, which are, okay, who was 18 at the time of his arrest and was sentenced to death row. I'm not sure how the son of Sam rule applies to that because Damien Echols is considered guilty of the crime of murder. He's not allowed to make money from a book on a murder he committed. So how does he option the rights to it? This will be interesting to find out how legally that's going to happen. Deadline says Depp and his producing partner have been waiting for an opportunity to explore the story. And from the sound of it, their plan is to focus on the conviction and imprisonment of Echols and present his life before conviction. Oh, that'll be pretty. Or are they going to doctor that up? Because not a pleasant dude. You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons he became a suspect, was because he was pretty creepy, really creepy. And it, as well as twists and turns leading to their release. That's called massive publicity coming out of Hollywood, pressure. And finally they just broke and said, look, dudes, take the Alfred plea. We'll let you out of here because we don't want to deal with it anymore. But you're still guilty. It certainly sounds like an interesting endeavor, though we'll be waiting a while for it, as Echols' book isn't expected to be published until September of this year. And does he get to make money off his books as well? I don't know what more he's got to write, let me tell you. Damien Echols. What a creepy dude. So he's still creepy. I don't care what anybody says. He's a creepy dude. Creepy dude. So we'll see what happens with that. I find that's I don't know. Just that story never ends either. I have been asked to participate in a documentary concerning there's the stepfather of one of the boys who has been accused by so many of committing the crime, and there's two other people who've been very involved in investigating a whole lot of things. And if that comes to fruition, I might be willing to participate with my analysis of the actual time the crime went down, and if who even had the ability to commit the crime within the time frame that occurred, and also my profile on who would commit the crime, what kind of crime is this anyway. I know, so I've already done that with my analysis. And that's in my West Memphis 3 show. But I'm really willing to participate in a movie like this, but it all depends how it all works out, whether I would do it or not do it. So, but some of the accusations being thrown around are just ludicrous. Florence says, was it ever determined whether he stomped that dog to death? I cannot actually not remember. I remember hearing something about the dog stomping thing. I don't remember if it was true or it was not true. It's been a long time since I've looked at some of the issues of the case. So I have no clue, but not a cool dude. Let me put it this way. If my daughter said at the time when she was like, say 15, I'm going to go on a date with Damien Echols, she would probably be moved to another location and put into some kind of protective custody. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I think, Echols and Depp. Yeah. But, I think Johnny Depp truly believes Damien Echols is innocent. And so one thing I want to understand, I don't dislike people or because they believe in something. I could just think they just have poor judgment, which again, he hooked up with Amber Heard. That's poor judgment. Oh my God. And if you haven't seen my little video on that, I was in the green room with Amber Heard before she met Johnny Depp. And I was stuck in that room with her for about an hour. And I remember thinking, whoever hooks up with this woman is in so much trouble. And then she hooked up with Johnny Depp. And I was like, that will be you, dude. And so, but I'm a criminal profiler. Johnny Depp's a dude who likes hot women, and she's not a bad looking thing. You know what I mean? And so, some people don't have good judgment. And there's people who have pretty good judgment, but their take on something is different than mine. They might believe that, one case, this person is innocent and I think they're guilty, or vice versa. And I don't turn on that person and say, I don't like you anymore. You're a horrible person and you're a moron on a slug. I mean, there's no sense in doing that. It's just we often have differing opinions, and we have to be able to discuss them and to present our cases and learn from each other. So, yeah, Johnny, I think he's got his heart. His heart is, I say he's got a bromance with this guy. He just really likes him, and he thinks he's innocent. And so he wants to tell the world about how these things go wrong, because he's a believer in that these boys were wrongly convicted, and it was a terrible tragedy in his mind. So he has the right to produce a film that I will probably be totally appalled with. But so that's just, kind of my thinking on that. But, I don't control the film industry, and I don't have the money he has. All right, I'm going to talk about this now. This is the case that we've been looking at recently, and the reason it's interesting because I don't usually talk about cases as they're going on. I don't do things unless I have enough evidence to usually talk about it. But this case is people keep commenting on it almost on a daily basis. But I thought I read an interesting thing today, and I just thought this really points out something that is useful to realize. And so it's just one statement from this. All right, so if you look at the picture here, this is Debbie Collier. She's the one that she was the woman that disappeared, and then her body was found with burn marks on it, and she had been murdered. And all kinds of squirrely stuff seems to be going on with the daughter. And supposedly there was a strange message that was sent to the daughter and sending her a whole bunch of money through Venmo. So a lot of suspicions are on the daughter, the daughter's boyfriend, the husband. There's all kinds of and there's a number of creepy people sort of rolling around. So what happens in a case like this is a lot of these channels, YouTube channels, start doing 2-hour shows on a case, trying to pick it apart and point fingers at everybody, which I just think gets out of hand. But here's something I want to point out, which is how things can be misconstrued. Now listen to this. All right, so there's that circle is around her vehicle in the parking lot. Now listen to what it says here. All right. 24 hours before Debbie Collier's body was found off a logging road in Clarksville, Georgia, new video from outside a Family Dollar store in Clayton adds to the mystery. Habersham, and I want to say adds to the mystery, I point this out. When the reason a lot of things are added to mysteries is because we don't actually have a lot of times information that the police have. So people on the outside are guessing. The police are going, no, that's not what happened, because they know more, generally speaking. And of course they are too, trying to get information to determine what happened. But a lot of times mystery is caused by the fact we don't have half the information. But anyway, a new video from outside Family Dollar in Clayton adds to the mystery. Habersham County detective said you can see her black Chrysler Pacifica van she rented. Her car was in the shop, so she rented this van. You can see it pull into the store before 3 p.m. on September 10th. Detective said Collier appears to be alone, which she did. She walked in the front door, she bought some stuff, went up to the counter. And calm, alone and calm when she walked to the store where video captured her buying several items. So she wasn't captive of anybody. Nobody was holding a gun to her back. She seemed perfectly normal and calm. So it didn't seem like at that point there was a problem. However, get this, at 3:17 p.m. Okay, so let's look at the time again. 3 o'clock, she pulls into the store, and then she's in there doing her stuff. Then she leaves the store. At 3:17 p.m., while Collier is sitting inside her van outside the Family Dollar. Now, this is really an important piece of evidence. This is, again, showing us how if we don't know something, we can go down the wrong hole, and sometimes it's a big rabbit hole. Her daughter, Amanda Bearden, said her mom sent her a Venmo payment for almost $2,400, along with a text stating, "They won't let me go." All right. So 2 things on this. One is it looks like this is what they're basically trying to say is that at the time that the Venmo payment was sent to the daughter, the mother was sitting in the van doing something, maybe sending the Venmo payment and texting from that location. No one was in the vehicle with her. She wasn't under threat at that point. So why did she send that weird message? Okay. The full message was, let me find the full message. Oh, come on. Where's the full message? Is it not in this article? The full message was like, they're not going to let me go. This is the money I'm sending you. And there's a key underneath a blue something outside the house. It was a weird message. Now, I do not have proof yet that the mother actually sent the payment from her phone to Amanda. Could somebody else have accessed Venmo and sent this to the daughter? Some people thought that at that point, the daughter had her mother's phone and just sent it to herself. You see, you can come up with all kinds of possibilities. But I just wanted to point this out because of this one thing. I thought about this when I'm reading this. So she said, they're not going to let me go. Now, think about this statement just for a minute and think how you can interpret this statement. they're not going to let me go. What? And of course, when you have a text, you don't have emotions, you don't have inflections in the voice, things you don't know. I want to ask you guys, that one statement, they're not going to let me go. What could it mean? What do you think? Just give me some ideas about what you think that could mean. I'm going to have a drink while somebody tells me what they think. What comes into your head with that statement? I'm waiting. Come on, someone. What does that mean? What do you think it could mean? Because we don't know. This is one of the things also. We don't know much about Debbie Collier. We don't know what her life is like. We don't know what trouble she has, what her plans are. We don't know about her marital status, her relationship with her daughter. We don't know anything from the outside. So when somebody texts something and we don't know them really well, the question is, what does it mean? Okay, Lisa's come in with one. Okay, let's see. All right. Lisa says, not being allowed to go somewhere or being abducted and not allowed to leave. Okay, I want to point. Okay, let me see. We got one more coming in. Anne says, the daughter is telling us her mother will be killed. Well, no, the mother sent that text, theoretically. And because they believe, at this point, here's the confusing thing. If the daughter had already had hold of the phone and this was a staged text, then it's very possible that that wasn't the mother sending the text or the Venmo, and it was the daughter setting up some stage thing so people would think a certain thing. Now, if the phone was with the mother in the parking lot and that was the time that the text was actually sent from that phone in the parking lot, then she sent it. Debbie Collier sent that text to her daughter. So now I'm going to go back up to what Lisa said. What people believe right up front when they heard that, they're not going to let me go. They thought the second part, the latter part of this statement that Lisa made, that she's being abducted and not allowed to leave. So originally, when that was sent, somebody thought somehow, like maybe she's in the trunk of a vehicle, somebody grabbed her and threw her in the trunk of a vehicle, and she still had her phone, so she texted, I'm not going to be allowed to go. But then people say, well, why didn't she just dial 911? Why didn't she say who took her? So that became a question that was hard to answer. Now, let me go to the former part here. Not being allowed to go somewhere. Now, think about this. They won't let me go. So either you're being held and they're not going to let you go. They're going to kill you. That's one possibility. Or two, they're not going to let me go. Maybe, a kid could say this. Well, hey, aren't you going to come to the concert? No, they're not going to let me go. That could be what it was about. That somebody wasn't going to let her go do something. Could be, they're not going to let me go. I don't know who. The people at work wouldn't let her go do something. The husband wouldn't let her go do something. They wouldn't let me go to whatever she wanted to go do. That's possible. So it's interesting. We have two very different possibilities of what that statement meant. They're not going to let me go. And this is why we have to be very careful about jumping to conclusions and starting to point fingers at people, because until we get the totality of the evidence, we often don't know what certain things even mean until we get the timing. Where was this happen? What do we know? Now we have videos that she went to the store by herself. She came out by herself. She's sitting in a vehicle by herself. Supposedly sent the text at the time she's in the vehicle. I still don't know what happened to her. So people say, well, do you have an analysis yet? And no, I don't, because I don't have enough information for me to make a correct analysis. I don't quite know what the police know, so I can't go there at this point. But but it's very interesting. Let's see here. Lisa says, wait a minute. How is the mother texting if she supposedly was abducted? Yeah, I just answered that, right? And that was the question people had. It's a good question. I mean, sometimes you are thrown in the trunk of a vehicle and you can use your phone. And they don't check because they grabbed you and chucked you. if they keep you someplace any period of time. I argued this with the Panama girls, the missing Panama girls, because they made they made this attempt to get help when they're in the Panamanian jungle trying to survive, and people think they were kidnapped. And I'm like, well, if they kidnapped the 2 girls, why would they leave the 2 phones with the 2 girls? They would just take the phones away. So if you're going to be kept someplace, chances are you're not going to get to keep your phone. But in a quick movement where they might, I say, throw you in a trunk or something like that, you might still have the phone that you can access. But then you'd think she would have dialed 911 and not sent a Venmo payment to her daughter. I mean, I think there's 911 might be more important. So that's kind of weird. But I just wanted to bring up that one line because I thought that was interesting, because it teaches us not to jump to conclusions on when somebody says something, because we're not actually sure what they mean sometimes. And oftentimes I've seen that, for example, I'm a kind of sarcastic human being. So sometimes I put something out that's sarcastic and it's not taken well by people who don't understand sarcasm. Not good. Just some people just don't have a sarcasm receptor, shall we say. And so they're like, how could you say that? And I'm like, no, I was being sarcastic. But when you text, it's even harder to see unless you put one of the, emoji thingies there going, something that tells the person it's a joke, So, all right. So that was just an interesting one. Next one thing I want to talk about is this, the drowning thing. Because of the drowning issue, we have the story, another one, the story of Kiely, what's her name? Shoot, hold on a second. I'm not doing a story on her right at the moment, but I want to talk about drowning. And there's 2 stories because somebody sent me a really interesting one. Just also Kiely, I think it's Kiely Rodni. She's the girl that went to a party and ended up in a reservoir, drowned in her car. And there's a huge internet thing about how she was really murdered. She didn't just have an accident. But you cannot believe how many people drive into the water. You just cannot believe how this happens. And here, this is a case. The reason I want to bring out this case here was because this is the kind of proof that we need to understand how things work. And a lot of reasons people get into conspiracy theories and to rabbit holes is because they don't understand how things work. This is an actual case of 2 girls who went into the water. And here are the 2 beautiful girls that went into the water. They're best friends. And one of them was driving, and some reason the car went off the road and they went into the water. Now, the reason there's not a murder conspiracy on this, I'm going to tell you why. Let me read you the story of what happened to these girls. And you can see how quickly and how crazy something like this can happen. And then if you don't have anybody seeing what happened, that's when everybody starts with the big conspiracy theories. Okay. It's a horrifying story. It's just really sad. Super sad. The title of this is We Are Drowning Slowly. Chilling moment, 2 trapped women make desperate call to uncle as car sinks into lake. Police are still trying to ascertain why Nidhi Laji Harani and Ruxmi Premji Vajihani, I think that's how you pronounce it, suddenly turned their car into the lake. All right. So this is with the story. This is coming from Perth, Australia. Hey, Australians, I got a story for you tonight. Hey, 2 women who drowned after their car plunged into a lake have been identified by officials. They were both 20 years old and best friends. Were heading to work from their home in Perth. They're heading to work. They drove into a lake in Avonlea around 6:40 a.m. on Sunday, September 11th. Now, this is Sunday morning. They're going to work. 2 very nice girls. Investigators revealed that the duo was traveling in a white Toyota when they took a sudden right-hand turn off, I think it's Edgerton Drive on Nangara Road. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. And for unknown reasons, continued driving across the median strip before falling into the lake. For unknown reasons. The 2 Edith Cowan University students died at the scene despite passerbys coming to their aid and trying to rescue them from the sinking car. They had tried to break through the windows. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. One of the initial responders, who identified himself as Just Singh, told 7 News that he could not swim. As he could not swim, he sought help from other people driving down the same road and managed to stop one man. This man swam to the car, tried to break the glass using a wrench. I was the first one to notice them, and when I stopped, I could see that they were trying to smash the windows, but they could not get it open. By the time he reached there, the car was completely underwater within 2 or 3 minutes. 2 or 3 minutes. That quickly. And when you're in a panic situation, people don't understand, a panic and a situation that shouldn't be happening. You're driving down the road, you're perfectly happy, and all of a sudden you lose control for some reason. And all of a sudden, the next thing you know, your car is diving into a lake and your car is sinking. And Kiely, I believe it was night. It was dark out there. So not only is your car going off, but you can't even see any damn thing. You're suddenly in the dark and things are happening around you. And it happens quickly. In some ways things happen like in slow motion, but on the other hand, they happen quickly. And for you to figure out, oh my God, what am I doing? What's happening here? 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Your car is sinking. You're trying to figure out, you're trying to open up a window. Some of the water's coming in. You're freaking out. It's not easy. Now, these girls, you can't open the windows. Here's the point, which people don't get. You can't open your electric windows if the water has shorted out your electrical system. So, the old cars, you could survive those cars because you could roll down your window regardless of what happened to your car. You can still roll the windows down. You got the new windows, you push the button. If their electrical system is out, none of your windows will open. One of the things they tell you is that if your car goes into the water, the first thing you do is hit the buttons on your car to get the windows down before anything shorts out. Maybe you'll get the window partway down at least, and you can get out of the vehicle without trying to break the window. But people don't realize that. So these girls probably had electric windows and they weren't going down, and now they're trying to beat their way out of the car and they're failing. So the car was completely underwater within 2 to 3 minutes. The cops were here within 10 minutes, but it was too late. I think it's tragic that we could not pull this off, and I never expected it would end up like this thing said. As per the officials, the pair had moved to Perth back in February and had been staying with one of the girls' aunts and uncles. A few minutes before the tragedy, he received a call from his niece, who was pleading for help as they were stuck in the car and could not smash out the window. She said, "Uncle, we've got an accident." See, she told her uncle it was an accident. So nobody can claim this is some kind of weird murder thing. We've got an accident and our car is in the pond and we are drowning slowly. And I'm like, where exactly are you? I told her to try to open the door to break the glass, and she said, "We're trying, but it's not opening because the electrical system is down." And as soon as I reached there, I could hear them hitting the glass. It's early stages of the investigation. We haven't got anything other than we don't believe there was another vehicle involved. They're devastated, of course, the families. A close family friend of the two women said that he had a difficult task informing the duo's family of their deaths. He said, "Even now, we cannot understand that actually happened." He revealed the two girls were deeply religious and used to visit the Sri Swaminarayan or temple quite often. He said that given their faith, alcohol or drugs could be ruled out 100% as a factor in the crash. And it was also 6:40 in the morning, going to work. I don't think they're drinking. These girls were very well mannered, no alcohol, no smoking. We're a very strict religious group. Now, unfortunately, Kiely went off the road in the middle of the night after a party, probably because of drugs and alcohol, or alcohol and drugs, or one or the other. But now it's a big, huge mystery because nobody saw it happen. And now they're claiming that, she was murdered and put in the vehicle and somebody else drove it into the water, and a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. But this is how quickly it happens. And I think this case is important because it shows these girls what reason the girl went off the road. Nobody knows. What I don't know. Was it just, but did an animal run out and she went like this and lost control? Don't know. 6:40 in the morning, it's dusk, those little deer, I don't know what they got around Perth, but in my area, those deer are always dead in the road. So, sometimes people do that, and that throws they can lose control of the car, go right into the water, and it happens so quickly. And she was able to tell people, we've had an accident. And so now they know it's not murder. Nobody else is involved. It just was a horrible, bad thing that happened. And I think this kind of thing is important for people to understand, because if you don't understand this, you go down rabbit holes for not a good reason, because you just think, oh, this couldn't have happened that way. Yes, it can. I actually started looking up drowning deaths. Oh my God, the amount of people just drowning everywhere in cars is phenomenal, because, you know, if you live near water, and, you know, in my area, we don't have that much. Well, right where I'm at, there's not much water here. So you just drive into a tree. But over near, like, for example, Ocean City, Maryland, there is water, there's rivers, there's bays. People end up in those, you know. Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes, got 10,000 chances to roll into one of them. So, you know, I don't know what they got in Perth, but all it takes is one moment in time. I want people to understand that. And that's why I try to bring out this information to people before they start going down and making a lot of claims that are just not supported by evidence. Just because something could have happened doesn't mean it did happen, especially when there's no evidence to prove that. Maybe the driver had a medical episode. Oh, they were young girls, 20 years old. You know, possible. You know, it's hard. I don't know which girl was calling. The girl who was driving, the girl who was not driving. I don't know. It could be. It's hard to say. We're going back to the other case. It could also mean some kind of nefarious organization or group or enterprise she can't get out of. They won't let me go. We're going back to the Debbie Collier thing. That's a good point. That's another way of looking at it. They won't let me go. I don't know that she was involved in anything like that, but that's another very good, way you could interpret something. And so you have to be careful about, which interpretation you're going to jump to conclusions on. Let's see. Michaela says, also, what time was sunrise in Perth at that time? It may have been dark. Yeah, I don't know. Weird things can happen. One of the problems I always had was I used to, when I lived in Minnesota, I used to be involved in a Bollywood dance group, with a ladies dance group. And from where I lived, so all my Indian friends lived in one area called Plymouth, Minnesota. So when they scheduled things, sometimes they would schedule things saying, oh, like, well, why don't we meet at, 6:00? And it was during rush hour, and but they all lived nearby. So if they weren't working, which a lot of them were homemakers, or we had doctors in the group, but depending on their schedules, they decided who could make it. And if they could make it, and they all lived like 5 minutes from each other, it was grand. They just said, okay, we're going to meet at 6. And I'm like, hey, I live 45 minutes across town, and I live to the, let me get it straight, I live to the east. And if I have to drive west, straight west on the highway at that time, I can pretty much not see the damn road because I'm so blinded by the sun, because it's right on the horizon, and it's torture just driving west. So sometimes you can be driving and the sun can come up and hit you, and you can lose control of your car because you can't see the road. The other night I was driving at night, and all of a sudden the rain came and somebody splashed rain over my car. I might as well have been under an ocean, and I was driving like 60 miles an hour and couldn't see anything. Terrifying. So those things happen, and it can happen just like that. So yeah, the swerve to miss a deer is always possible. Those darn deer can kill you off. The deer is the very popular thing. Those deer, an animal dashed out. You never know. A lot of times the theory is you should just hit the damn animal and not swerve your car. You never swerve to miss an animal. There we go. See, Michaela, you got it straight. We have kangaroos here that get hit by cars all the time. I've hit a few. Oh wow! So we've got deer. You've got kangaroos. Only problem I have, because I drive a small car, I drive a Mazda convertible, and I always say, if I hit a deer, both of us are going to lose. My daughter and son-in-law, they have a big Mack truck, a big, huge truck. I mean, that they're just going to hit the deer and drive over it. But people have had deers go through the windshield, just crush the cars. And so, but yes, correct. Generally speaking, you should not swerve. And it's sad, but you shouldn't swerve. So yeah, it might have been a kangaroo. Who knows? Yeah, you've swerved. Yeah, don't swerve. I mean, it's a scary thing. Yeah. Oh, you have deer too, so you never know. And if they missed they didn't kill it. That thing goes hopping away, and they're dying in the drink, So it's a sad thing. But I just think that's a really interesting point to know that that's sometimes the way things go. And now on the issue of water, this article was brought to my attention. I thought it was really interesting by one of my wonderful people here. Police have a story about boy 9 years old drowns while showering inside Houston home. Okay, so now I got the wrong article. So in a second, I knocked out the ones that would help out. So anyway, this basically what happened was this boy's 9 years old. He's showering and he's taking a shower, but it's in a bathtub, so that's important to know. And his grandfather finds him having drowned in the bathtub from the shower, though, not from taking a bath. And, we're talking about the other case the other day about, the husband who said his wife fell asleep in the bath and drowned. And, he's been convicted of killing her. Can you drown in a bathtub? And this is always the issue. And if you do drown in a bathtub, what would have to happen to get you to drown in a bathtub? Well, a 9-year-old boy taking a shower. That seems a little odd. So the police are investigating, mind you, because they're like, how is a 9-year-old going to drown in a shower? Now, I don't know. That's a really good question. Theoretically, you're taking a shower. You're supposed to have the drain open so that the water goes straight down. Now, having said that, I've lived in houses where the drain didn't work properly, and as you shower, the bath water rises. So that's something this is part of the investigation. People don't understand that sometimes when you do investigations, you actually have to work to find out stuff, and you have to check things out. Did the tub fill up before something happened? I don't know whether he had an injury to his head. In other words, maybe he's taking a shower, the tub's filling up, he slips, hits his head, cracks his head, and slides under the water, which is now higher because the tub doesn't drain properly. Haven't seen any information about when the grandfather found him, whether he found him underneath the water, whether there was water in the tub, or whether there was no water in the tub, and why would he have drowned if there's no water in the tub? That would be interesting to know. I don't know the answer to any of this yet, but I just thought it was interesting because here's a 9-year-old, and that's a pretty old child to drown in a tub, taking a shower. One of the other big issues is always whether the person has had a seizure of some sort, has epilepsy, that would cause them to essentially become unconscious. And you can drown in a very small amount of water if you're unconscious. So if you slip down and your face is straight down in the water and it's only this high because your plug isn't perfect and you get water in you and you're not conscious, yes, you can die. So did the child have epilepsy? And that's the question. Or was this a case of homicide? So the police are investigating, but I just thought that was interesting because here you have a kid who's not even taking a bath, he's taking a shower, and things didn't go so well. Just a kind of curious one. I'll see if I can find out anything about it later on. Hold on a second. And we don't know. We don't know yet. I have no information on this case. I just think it's interesting that somebody would die in a shower as opposed to a bath, drowning. I don't know. I'm assuming at this point they've proven he drowned as opposed to he died of something else and didn't drown. Well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. I just thought kind of a curious thing. And let's see. Okay. What is it? I have two more things I'm going to talk about. I already talked about her. Okay. So this is the last one. Oh, I'm going to get to this in 1 second. I just want to do this one other thing I keep forgetting to do. And I want to point it out. I have two things before I get to that one. And that one I really want to get to. Okay. This is a story. A woman whose rape DNA led her to arrest sues the city of San Francisco. Just an interesting point. So what happened is she was a rape victim. They took her DNA from a sexual assault case, but they entered it into a system, and it was used by the San Francisco police to arrest her in an unrelated property crime. So she's like, so the question is, hey, wait a minute. So during the search of the San Francisco Police Department Crime Lab database, the woman's DNA was tied to a burglary in late 2021. Her DNA had been collected and stored in the system as part of a 2016 domestic violence and sexual assault case. So now they've used the victim's DNA to convict her in a crime. So there's an issue over is this an okay thing to have happen? In other words, and people have argued about this issue in general, like should everybody in the country submit their DNA so that we wouldn't have to run around trying to figure out whose DNA it was? Everybody's DNA would be in a data bank, and therefore, anytime a crime is committed that has DNA, bingo, we got you. It would work very, very well, but a lot of people think it's a violation of privacy, violation of your civil rights. So, this woman sued them for using her DNA. Let me see if she won on that one. But they moved to ban using rape DNA for unrelated cases. Apparently, they approved a bill out there prohibiting using DNA profilers from rape cases for other things. Because normally speaking, the only reason your DNA is in like CODIS is because you committed a felony, or you gave your DNA up for some reason. But in this case, she didn't give up her DNA to be, because she committed a felony. She gave it up because she was a victim. Of course, she should not be committing crimes, but it's an interesting issue of what would work and what will allow to be used. Yeah, it's troubling if she was a victim. Yeah, that's the whole point of the issue. If you haven't done anything bad, you have nothing to fear. I will give my DNA in a heartbeat. And, this is the other side of that theory, that, those people who do not have a fear of being real, giving a crime or having, let's say a crime occurs, they say, can I have your DNA? We want to check it. It's like, well, my DNA is not going to end up in that person's vehicle. So go ahead. On the other hand, with touch DNA, which kind of jumps really easy, you get a little worried that maybe your DNA will show up for a reason that you actually weren't there. So sometimes the concept is that the system should work correctly, but there are times, and I'm going to do my show on Sunday. I was involved in a court case that was one I have been holding off on because I was subpoenaed to testify for the prosecution, and most everybody thinks mostly that's what I would testify for, but I actually was opposed to testifying, and I talked them out of it. Because I believed the person that they were prosecuting was innocent. And so I'm going to do that. The jury trial has ended. The verdict has come in. I'm going to do the show on Sunday. I was involved in this case 24 years ago, somewhere around there. I profiled the case. I'm going to tell you all about it on Sunday. It's the most bizarre, crazy thing you'll ever hear. So tune in on Sunday because it's going to be one hell of a case. It really will be. And I'm glad it's over. But some stuff is unbelievable. And I say I'm going to be talking about prosecutorial misconduct in this case. So kind of horrifying. But that was just an interesting thing. And the other one I wanted to mention before I talk about the last case is there's a guy out in California who has been. Let's see, where is he? Where'd he go? Where'd my California guy go? Yeah. Stockton serial killer. There's a guy who's been running around in Stockton, California. 5 recent shooting deaths in Stockton and 1 in Oakland last year appear to be connected, prompting police to call the incidents a series of killings, which they're not calling it a serial killer. They're calling it a series of killings. That's kind of interesting differentiation. Along with the 5 deaths in Stockton and the 1 in Oakland, the shooting of a woman in Stockton last year who survived is also linked in connection with the serial killings. The victim in Oakland was a 40-year-old Hispanic man, Juan Miguel Vasquez Serrano. Also, the 46-year-old Black woman is the only known survivor of the shootings. She said the woman biked to an encampment at Park and Union Streets where she was shot around 3:30 a.m. She was by a tent when she saw a man dressed in all dark clothing, wearing a dark face mask and a dark jacket. She said the man was anywhere between 5'10" and 6'2" tall. The woman told police that there were no words exchanged between them and that she tried to defend herself by advancing toward him. She was hit multiple times by gunfire. Got to give her some credibility for having balls, let me tell you. Most of the deadly shootings happened in Stockton within a 4-mile radius of one another. The shooting where the woman survived happened to the south of the 5 deadly shootings, which is very important because this is a local crime, and they know, therefore, that guy isn't running through town. Okay? They're very much in the same area. As a matter of fact, after one of the crimes, you just see the guy walking away. And here's the guy walking away. There's a couple. Where'd he go? Hold on a second. My walking away guy has vanished on me. Oh, there. Hold on a second. There's Here's a couple of pictures coming up. Okay, so here's this dude. You see him over there? He's in all black. This is the person of interest, and there he is going around the corner. There's actually a video of it, and you can see him walking. And I'm going to say from the video, the way he walks, I'm going to say young black male. That's just my theory on that. And I only say that because it's a cultural thing in the manner of walking. And he looks very young, in my opinion, the way he walks also. So, but that can't mean that it could be a white dude who culturally walks this way. But just from looking at it, I'm going to say a young black male. And there's an interesting thing that happens these days where there's most of the people have been killed, by the way. They are what people call unhoused these days. And then they're kind of trying to tiptoe around the fact that essentially they're homeless. Not necessarily all of them. I can't quite get the information because they're kind of careful and cagey about that. But I think they're mostly homeless people. And the reason that they're targets is that the guy who wants to commit the crime just enjoys it. You know, he's a serial killer, but he's a different kind of serial killer. You know, we often think of serial killers as just being a guy who likes to rape and murder women. That's it. You know, rape, torture, murder women. But that's not true. You know, we have like Son of Sam, who just liked to shoot people. He didn't want to rape them. He just wanted to kill them, just wanted to shoot them. And so homeless people are super easy targets. So if you have a little gun on you, you know, a nice little weapon on you, you can just wander around your neighborhood and you can just pop them off. And it's kind of like a little video game. And you feel like they don't matter anyway. So it's weird because sometimes serial killers like to choose like trophies of society, say, ha ha, let me get back to your society. But some people just like to do it as a game. And I've seen an increase of the shooting of homeless people. And I think it's just because there's so many more homeless people and they're very vulnerable, and the person who's doing the killing doesn't really care, and he's just using them as targets. You know, so easy. So I hope they catch the guy. But I think he's just, you know, I'd say he watches a lot of video games and he's having a fun time taking it into reality. That's just my thought on it. We'll see who they come up with. See if I'm right on it or I'm wrong on it. All right, now I'm going to go to this case, and this is my final thing tonight. I was asked to do this case a while back, and I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, there's an interesting point to be made about this particular case. This woman is Adrienne Shelly. Her stage name, well, her real name is Andrea Levine. She was murdered in 2006, but her stage name was Adrienne Shelley. And she was an American actress, film director, and screenwriter. She became known for her roles in independent films such as The Unbelievable Truth and Trust. She wrote and co-starred in a 2007 film Waitress, which was released after her death, which became a Broadway show. And the reason I want to bring this one up is because of the hanging issues and suicide. And by the way, when I finish this show, hopefully I have the energy, I'm going to do part 2 on the Sean, the case of the young boy who, Sean Doherty, who last April, I believe it was, who was found hanging from his swing set. I did a video on that. The family believes it was murder. The police have closed the case as a suicide, and there's a huge outrage on the internet. I pointed out that most of the time hanging suicides that the police label as suicide usually are, except in unusual situations. I have run into a couple which were murder. Most of the time they're not, but a couple were murder. This was an interesting one. So her death was initially determined by police to be suicide. Her husband's insistence on a reevaluation brought her killer to justice. This is a very interesting case where the police were wrong. Okay. So what happened was this. Okay. Shelley was found dead approximately at 5:45 p.m. on November 1st, 2006. Her husband discovered her body, unfortunately for him, an Abingdon Square apartment in Manhattan's West Village that she used as an office. And that's important. She used it as an office. Okay. Her husband, Ostroy, had dropped her off at 9:30 a.m. He became concerned that Shelley had not been in contact during the day and asked the doorman to accompany him to the apartment. They found her body hanging from a shower rod in the bathtub with a bed sheet around her neck. I find the bed sheet an interesting thing, and you'll see why. Although the door was unlocked and money was missing from her wallet, the NYPD believed Shelley had taken her own life. An autopsy found she had died as a result of neck compression. Ostroy insisted his wife was happy in her personal and professional life and never would have committed suicide, leaving her 2.5-year-old daughter motherless. His protest over the following day prompted further examinations of the bathroom, which revealed a sneaker print in gypsum dust on the toilet where her body had been found. The print was matched to other shoe prints in the body where construction work had been done the day of Shelley's death. Diego Pilco, a 19-year-old construction worker from Ecuador, was arrested on November 6th and confessed on tape to attacking Shelley and staging the fake suicide. Pilco's original version, I always love their original versions, and then they try to get close to what happened. Pilco's original version claimed that when Shelley demanded the construction noise be kept down, he threw a hammer at her. Afraid she might make a complaint that could result in his deportation because he was an illegal alien. Since he had immigrated into the U.S. illegally, he followed her back to her apartment. Pilco said Shelley slapped him. I love it when they say that the victim attacked them. They do this all the time. She punched me. She slapped me. She insulted me. Yeah, okay. No, she probably did none of those things. You're just lying like a dog because you just went there to kill her. Slapped him when he grabbed her at her apartment door, and he retaliated, you see. Retaliated by punching her in the face, knocking her to the ground where she hit her head and fell unconscious. Believing he had killed her, he then hanged her to make it appear a suicide. This version was not supported by the lack of head trauma. So I mean, you give a story and none of the evidence supports it. We just know you're a liar. And the presence of neck compression as the cause of death. So in a way, his story is reasonable, okay? That she did complain, and he thought she was and he got mad at her, although I don't know why he would give a crap. He's just a worker, and then he went there to confront her because he's an idiot, and then they got in an argument, and he killed her, punched her out and killed her. There's actually some sense to a rage thing here because he's got issues, but that's not what happened. So anyway, Pilco then gave a different account during the trial in 2008. He said he was returning to work after lunch when he noticed Shelley returning to her apartment in the elevator and decided to follow and rob her. That sounds more likely. That's a much more likely story. He said he waited on the landing of Shelley's apartment as she entered and left the door open and intended to steal from her purse. When Shelley caught him and threatened to call the police, he grabbed the phone and covered her mouth to quiet her screaming. After rendering Shelley unconscious, he bound a bedsheet around her neck and strangled her. He then dragged her to the bathroom where he hung her body from the shower rod to make her death look like a suicide. I'm going to go with that story. The second version was consistent with the lack of dust on Shelley's shoes, which she was not wearing when found, and was apparently a confession to murder. Prosecutors thought if charged with murder, Pilco might return to his original account and a jury trial would find him guilty on a lesser charge. The medical examiner determined that Shelley was still alive when hanged. Pilco pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter, and sentenced to 25 years in prison without parole. Since he is an illegal immigrant, he is scheduled to be deported to Ecuador upon release. Pilco's sentencing, Shelley's husband and family members said they would never forgive him. Andy Ostroy said of Pilco, "You are nothing more than a cold-blooded killer," and that he hoped he would rot in jail. Can't blame him on that one. Let's see. I want to see if there's a Law and Order thing dramatizing it and so on and so forth. So what I think is interesting here is this. One of the dangers is when someone is, and I'm not getting political here, but this is just a factor. When somebody is illegally in a country or has a warrant out for them, okay, they're more likely to kill to prevent being discovered. So a lot of times you'll find those two things may be behind the actual killing more so than they could just run away or do something else. But when they believe that person could rat them out and identify them, and they'd be either deported or sent to prison, a violation of parole or whatever they're violating, or they've got a warrant out, they're going to be caught. Killing them seems like a better choice. As far as this goes, as far as why the bed sheet is interesting to me. I don't know if that was the only thing available, but it's also something that's used in prison a lot for suicide. So I'm curious whether this fellow has spent time in prison in Ecuador, because that is one of the ways you knock yourself off there, because you don't have a lot of other implements to use for committing suicide. So that would be in his head. It's like, oh, this would do. This will work. Because of the soft quality of the material, it's a little bit harder to make determinations as to whether she was how she was actually killed. And if let's see, so he said basically that, let me just look at this one more time here. When he knocked her out, after rendering her unconscious, supposedly he said he covered her mouth to keep her from screaming, and whether he just covered it to the point where she could not breathe and she passed out, or did a sleeper hold on her, which they use at bars. You sleeper hold somebody until they pass out, and then you let them go and they come back. But if they pass out and you put something around their neck and then compress that, and hang them up. This is a real case of a hanging that was actually a homicide. And I commend her husband on being able to fight for that. Luckily, they found a reasonable suspect right away with the footprints and the fact there was construction going on in the building. So there were people there who would commit a crime like this. So, but the difference between this and the Sean Doherty case is that Sean Doherty was at home, and so far I can't find a logical reason why somebody entered that home to kill him, and then kill him in that particular way, because he wasn't just hung; he was outside hanging from the swing set in the backyard with a plastic bag over his head and his hands through his belt. So it's a little bit more work than necessary if you're just going to off somebody because you were burglarizing the house and thought nobody was home and ran into the guy, which could have happened. I mean, theoretically. So because if somebody was watching the home and they saw the adults leave, they might have thought nobody was left in the house and entered the house to burglar it and ran into Sean, and then decided to to eliminate him as a witness. But the methodology is so strange in that case. It's a little unlikely that it was. I would lean more heavily towards suicide in that case than homicide, but worth taking a look at. But this case, the husband did fight, and it was actually truly a homicide and not a suicide. So I thought that was a really fascinating case. But when there is motive there, when people think they're going to be arrested, they will often kill to prevent being arrested. And some people will say, well, what the heck, so you get deported, or so you end up going back to prison. Is that really worth killing somebody over? Because, then you could end up in prison for a lifetime. Well, you think so, but the fact is they think they're going to go get away with it. You know what I mean? We're talking about psychopaths here. They think they'll commit well, I'll just get rid of her and then I'll just run and they won't catch me. And the guy almost did get away with it. Now, didn't he? Because it, for whatever reason, unfortunately, that police department did think it was a suicide, and it actually wasn't. Very rare case, but it actually wasn't. So I think that was a really interesting case. And thank you for bringing it to my attention. Let me check in here before I see what you have to think about this. Michaela says he should have gone for the trifecta. He had robbery and homicide. He should have thrown in sexual assault. Well, I think, he might have done that on another thing, but maybe another occasion. But at this point, he just, he wanted to look like a suicide. You can't sexually assault somebody and do that. Her husband hired Dr. Bodden. Really? Well, that's interesting. I'd like to see what the autopsy came up with that, because there wasn't a lot to go on, really. I think in this particular case, it was more a case of the footprints and the construction workers. That there was the strangers who had access to that location, and maybe something fishy went on. I'd like to see what Dr. Bodden had to say, but I haven't seen it yet. What is wrong with people, really? Well, they're psychopathic, some of them, and you don't want to run into them because they're not great people. Yeah, it is disgusting. Every time I see a crime go down, that some person that seems like a really nice person looking forward to the rest of their lives, that always kind of like, just gets you, it really gets you. I always remember this one picture for some reason. And I do approach most of my cases very unemotionally because that's my job. And some of my problems I have a lot of times with podcasts is they use a lot of emotion and, oh, it's such a horrifying case. And the family is, and what it does is that makes you not look at the evidence properly because you're bringing your emotional viewpoint into it. So I don't look at things that way. As you can tell, when I do most of my shows, I don't show a great deal of emotion. It doesn't mean I don't have emotion. It just means that when I'm talking about a case, I do it very scientifically, dryly, and fortunately, sometimes with a sense of humor. Some people like my sense of humor, some don't. Anyway, but I don't know why I remember this one picture. It was a picture of a girl. It was probably, she was maybe 18, 17, something like that, with her puppy. And she's standing there and she's holding this little fluffy puppy in her hand, a little white puppy. And I just remember looking at that picture and thinking, you didn't know you were going to get murdered the next day, did you? She was happy. She was a happy girl. She had a happy family. She is looking forward to going to college, and she has all these things ahead of her in life. And she's holding a little puppy, and she got raped and murdered the next day. And that thought always was like, and it's really hard to fathom in one's head, that one day everything is normal, and one next day it's all gone. And that, of course, happens with other things. It happens with health, heart attacks, accidents, and all this stuff. The two girls are drowned in the lake. I mean, my God, they were these lovely girls, best friends, going to work, and 3 minutes later, they were dead. It's hard to accept sometimes. It really is. It's very sad. Let's see. Pat, I watched a short documentary on Netflix about Peter Madsen. Who's Peter Madsen? Okay. Who's Peter Madsen? Oh, Mom, while you're about to tell me that, Michaela says, the things you've seen, Pat, I don't know how you keep your sanity. How keep saying, I can answer that, I think. I guess I look at life this way. So this is going to be a Pat Brown's life lesson stuff. I look at life as an adventure that first of all, it's a gift that we have a chance to live here. Have our life here is a gift. And a gift doesn't come with an expiration date or an exactness. It's just a gift. We're given a gift of life to experience something, to have an adventure. And we have an adventure. And I've had a great adventure in my life. It hasn't been perfect life. I mean, I've had some sad times. I've had some disappointments. But I've had an adventure. I think everybody has an adventure, and there are always maybe different kinds of adventures. And some people will say, well, my adventure sucks entirely. I was born in a country where I was married off at the age of 9, raped by this 60-year-old dude. Life really sucked. And I commiserate with a person who gets a gift that maybe they got the one from the last shelf or something, and their adventure isn't so great. I do believe most people have good times and bad times, although not necessarily equal. But I've been in places where people are very poor and they still have love and they still have happiness, and even sometimes small things. I remember this scene, and Annie's not here now, but Annie and we were in Mongolia together. I had this camera where I could take pictures and give like it's a Polaroid, but it's a modern day Polaroid, and I bought it specifically so that I could take a picture of somebody and give it to them. And so there was this elderly couple. I'm going to say elderly, maybe I'm the same age, but anyway, we're out in the middle of nowhere, Mongolia, standing in front of this yurt, and there's no electricity out there. Life is not that easy because it's really cold in Mongolia in the winter, and they don't have the internet. It's a fairly primitive life, but there's good things about that life too. And so this couple, they wanted. I was going to take a picture of them, and they wanted to insist that we go into the yurt so they could stand in front of their altar, which had some Buddhist things on it, and a couple of pictures of the family. And then the woman insisted to take in her goat with her, but she wanted to make sure her goat was in the picture. And as I took this picture of this couple smiling a big smile with a goat in their arms, in front of the altar in their yurt, you say to yourself, everybody has a different life and everybody has a different adventure. And it can be very beautiful. And even if it's very different from ours, and we think maybe ours is better, we don't know that. Maybe to them, their life was better. And yes, some people have bad luck. And my personal way of thinking of it, maybe I sort of believe in, I would say I lean toward reincarnation for that reason, sort of a Hindu philosophy of life, that perhaps this is not our only adventure and that we get another shot at it, maybe many shots at it, so that we can have different experiences. That's just my take on things. And I have no, I have no proof of anything, but having seen what I've seen, I know that bad things happen, but I also know, by the way, that there's so many good people. There's so many beautiful times. In spite of the things that are bad, there's also so much beauty in the world. Every time I look at nature, every time, somebody serves a lovely meal, every time I see somebody hug another person, a child born into the world, someone holding a person's hand as they die and telling them they love them, when I see strangers helping strangers, I mean, there's just, the world is full of amazing things, an amazing amount of love. So, bad things do happen, but I've also seen a tremendous amount of great things. So that's the way I survive. And I also have to have a sense of humor. If I don't have a sense of humor, yes, I might crack up. And I also balance my life. I don't just do crime. I do art and dancing and I play, do sports, and I travel, and I have my family and friends. So, and I got you guys, and it makes dealing in this field a little more tolerable, and also feeling like you're doing some kind of good with education and crime solving and whatever else. So yeah. So I that's how I survive. So that's my 2 cents on that. Wait a minute. Oh, in the deep, he murdered. That tool. Sorry, Peter Madsen, the guy that killed the journalist in the submarine. Yeah, I do know this story. Yes, I think Benny will know this case. It was a huge deal in 2018 in Denmark. Yeah, I might do something on that case. I'm trying to let me get in. I need to study it a little bit more. That's a psycho and a half. A horrifying story. That it's almost like one of those stories that you see in a movie, but you go, that wouldn't happen. Yeah, she was killed in a submarine. Sure, Yeah, I'm gonna review that one. I will definitely do something about that at some point. And let's see what last comment is here. Yes, he's an independent engineer type who makes things like submarines and rockets. Guess he couldn't get a girl, but no, I don't know. I can't remember the details of the case, but it was horrific, just horrific. And I'm gonna do. There's a bunch of things I'm going to do. First of all, I want to let me tell you guys again, I think it's somewhere on Friday. I want to do this. I want you to pick a movie. If you have a movie that, not a documentary, but a movie you think that the psychopath in the movie is actually a close representation of a real psychopath. Because so many movies do things which I think are ridiculous, present serial killers and psychopaths in a way that just make me roll my eyes. But then sometimes they hit something on a nail on the head. So if you have a movie, you think that person was truly a perfectly represented psychopath, serial killer, send me what the movie is. Of course, Benny's already on the case. He's already got his things that he wants to present. And so I've actually seen like a few of his movies, the ones that he's talking about. So we're going to see if we agree or disagree on how realistic it is in the presentation in the movie. And so if you've got one, so I'm going to try to do like, I'm not quite sure if I'm going to do it all at one time. I'm going to break it up in a couple different times during Friday. So early and later, and then, we'll do part 1 and part 2 for people in different time zones. So if you're in a time zone, whatever time zone, tell me what time zone you're in. Tell me what movie you think it nails a psychopath. And we'll see if we can set up a phone and have fun with that. So that's my theory on Friday. What was one other thing I was going to tell you? Oh, I'm also going to do a show on Charles Sobrage. That was somebody recommended. I watched The Serpent on Netflix, which I did, and then I watched another movie, another movie made. It's not a documentary, but he was a real life person. But they did 2 fictional movies. I'm not going to use these for that show I was just talking about, our call-in thing. Then there was another movie called Ame or Charles. It's a Hindi movie. And so I'm going to compare first of all, I'm going to talk about Charles Sabrage, because he's considered one of the most prolific serial killers out of France. But I want to talk about, was he really a serial killer? What kind of killer was he? What kind of psychopath was he? Because he definitely was one. And which movie represented him better? Which one of them really showed him as a psychopath? So I'm gonna do that one and put that up as well before or after we do the other movie fictionalized psychopathy thing. So, and then I'm going to do Sunday on the case that you've all been wondering what the case is. Wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. Anne says, don't forget the little 12-year-old boy who was hanging. You said something new. Oh, no, I was going to do, the reason I wanted to do a part 2 on that case, what time is it? I'm trying to find that. Oh, I said, okay. I might do that right after the show. I want to do a part 2 because I listened to a podcast called Going West that went through the case, everything that was written about him on Facebook, what the parent said and all that. And I want to talk about red flags or red herrings and those two issues. I still offer my pro bono services to the family and police. I will reanalyze that case if either one of them wants me to do it. But that will be, I'm going to do that as a separate video because I want to point out those issues so people understand them better. So yes, I'm going to do that. Michaela says, Norman Bates, Psycho, or Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter. Okay. Okay. Well, if you have to pick one case, if you believe that Norman Bates was a good representation of a psychopath, or Hannibal Lecter was a proper representation of a psychopath. Yeah. So you have to over just send me a message. Put your name and your whether you're if you have a time if you have a time on Friday that's in, or if you're in Australia, Saturday, that you can do this. Then maybe let's say, I can try to arrange it so that maybe on Friday night I'll do it, so it'll be Saturday at your time. And I'm going to try to put people in an order so each person can have a little short period of time to say, here's the case I think. And so send me your preferred one on that and let me know. And I'm going to get all your messages together somewhere during the day. It's already Thursday tomorrow, on Thursday, and see if I can put the show together. If I fail completely, I'll do it next week, which might happen. Because this has been a crazy week with the court case that I was dealing with. So I spent all yesterday at the court until they came back with a verdict. So, and I've been talking with the media and stuff. So I've been packed with stuff, but still I managed to find some stuff to talk about today. And I'm glad you sent me your ideas in. That was grand. And so that's it. And I will see you for all the many other things this week. And I'm glad you were all here. And I'm glad for my new folks that are here. I'm glad you came. And all your input is great. And I love having the camaraderie and the ability to talk to somebody, because a lot of people say, well, why do you do live shows? I'm like, because when I do the videos, just the straight up videos, it's just different. There's not like human beings to talk to, and they're harder to do. They are harder to do because I feel like I'm talking to myself and there's nobody there, and it's weird. And so I struggle through those. I often end up, redoing them like 3 times because I blow it. And if I blow it here, I go, oh, I said that wrong. Nothing I can do. But when you're videotaping, you just have to stop and you go, I got to start over again. So annoying. Michaela says, thanks, Pat. My first hangout was amazing. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. I really am. That's awesome because, yes. And I'm hoping I'll see you at many more, although I know the time sucks sometimes. So, I wish, all these different time zones are really problematic. They really are. But I'm so glad you're here. It's so fun to have you here today. Christine says, this was awesome night. Oh, I'm glad you think so, Christine. And Anne up there in Canada, thank you very much, Anne, and good night, everybody, as well. And thank you, Carrie. I appreciate that. And so, Hannibal Lecter, Jodie Foster is an amazing actress. Jodie Foster is a great actress. However, she's a shitty FBI agent. She's like, I would have fired her like right away. As an FBI agent, she's terrible, but she's a good actress. It's not her fault that they wrote her as an idiot. But anyway, I'll get to that at another point. Actually, I did do a thing on Silence of the Lambs, so I do have a video on that. So you can check my, profiling at the movies. It's under that. It's in that playlist, so you can check it out and see what I really think. So anyway, I'm so glad you're here. I will see you next time.